So what comes into mind when I say mob mentality? Do you usually picture a large group of people all standing up together saying, or do you also imagine people with pitchforks? Well, bottom line is, mob mentality is when you get enough people to all agree on a certain task or goal, and whether that's for good or bad, we can really do some wonderful things, or really evil ones, if we all really tried. I had the pleasure of watching the Minecraft movie trailer quite a couple days ago, and I'm not pleased to say the least.
I'm sorry, I need to drop something.
So what would happen if all of us would say to those people, hey, enough is enough. Let's do something about this. Will we get a better outcome? That would be the question. Since the dawn of time, we as beings have always had a primitive mindset. Be together in a group and survive. That is the essential purpose of what mob mentality is about. As of now, my brain is still getting caffeinated. Eventually, the neurons will fire and wire together to give me more energy and more self-expression. Now, what does this have to do with the video? Listen, if you, and I know you have been to school, you may remember instances in when, say for example, you wanted to fit in with the rest of the class. And you would do anything by all means to get there. And if you didn't, you knew that the repercussions were going to be dire. Now, in the real world, even in your 9-to-5 office job, you still have to think a certain way, or else you're fired. I mean, that is the whole reason why employment is a thing to begin with. We as companies will hire people to fulfill our needs, to do the things we want in order to get tasks done. Since the dawn of time, we as beings have always had one goal in mind, and it's to survive and not perish. For we, as singles, would never make it in the wild. So, where does this term originate from? If you're talking about the term in general, I'm not sure what to tell you. The term mob mentality is pretty new, at least in modern English. English, being a Germanic language, has evolved through the decades, through the centuries, and it's not until recently that we've been getting fancier schmancier words. Mob mentality, however, has been recorded throughout history's timeline. Let's go back to one of my favorite instances in all history relating to mob mentality, the witch trials. More specifically, the Salem witch trials. So get this. Back then, people had an even more narrow mindset. And since Christianity and Catholicism was extremely powerful at the time, the churches, the conquests, and everything that had to do with being religious and church and whatnot made it so that people would view someone like that woman right there is a witch. So, we don't have enough proof to prove that she's a witch, but you know what? I don't like her. I don't like her, and I want to see her burn.
Negative b plus or minus radical b squared minus 4ac over 2a.
That's correct. A girl answered a math problem. You know what that means.
Oh yes, history does record even the worst of scenarios. And if you don't have the proper brain function to reason at times, then you get caught up into this phenomenon, which is mob mentality itself. Get this. You are an energetic being. And what that means is that if you feel enough energy of other people around you doing things that, even though they may not be according to your belief, you're still going to give into it. It's kind of like when you're playing basketball and then the team captain is choosing, so you're going to play on my team and you're going to be on that team. And then you just conform to it. It's pretty sinister how, at times, we lose ourselves when there's greater numbers than us. I mean, for example, what would you do in a situation where a lot of people who are a lot more attractive than you, a lot bigger, a lot stronger, they're all trying to sell you something? I'm telling you from personal experience because if you've ever went to Cancun, to a resort there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But anyways, people come up to you and they try to peer pressure you into things that you don't want to buy. In this instance, it would be a condo. One person will come, and a second one, and then a third one, and a fourth, and a fifth, and a sixth, and they all come together in a group, well-dressed people. And they intimidate you. The energy of those salesmen is so high and so much better compared to your mediocre energy that you eventually just can't help but give in. So, the French Revolution, which was not too long ago, the French Revolution was one of those instances where mob mentality actually proved to be beneficial. You see, King Louis VIII at the time, he was kind of a jerk.
This guy stinks!
He loved to engorge himself in the people's hard-earned money taxes, and the way that person was ruling was unjust. So, enough was enough. People gathered, they went and overthrew them. Mob mentality, as defined by Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is a large and disorderly crowd of people, especially one bent on riotous or destructive action. This definition certainly correlates with what happened at the Capitol. One time, those people just ran into the White House and just started punching officers, started trying to get their satisfaction, and like I said earlier, when enough of those people are gathered, almost anything is just pushed to the side. So what are the causes of mob mentality? In order to understand this better social psychology, here are these following causes. De-individuation. When people are part of a group, they experience a loss of self-awareness. Identity. When people are part of a group, they can lose their sense of individual identity. Emotions. Being part of a group can lead to heightened emotional states, be that excitement, anger, hostility, etc. Acceptability. Behaviors that are usually seen as unacceptable become acceptable when others in a group are seen carrying them out. anonymity. People feel anonymous within a large group, which reduces their sense of responsibility and accountability. Diffusion of responsibility. Being part of a group creates the perception that violent or unacceptable behavior is not a personal responsibility, but a group one. And last but not least, the larger the group or crowd, the more likely there will be de-individuation and diffusion of responsibility. So to summarize it, when you are caught up in a group, and I'm sure that some of you watching have friends, and even if you don't have friends, you may have experienced in school times when you just didn't want to be part of something, but you were peer pressured into it. Whether it was raising your hand,
First rule, no talking.
Does that mean? Nice throw.
to see who wants to go out and have a pizza party, and you didn't want to be the one seen that didn't want to vote. So you raised your hand up as well because everybody around the class was doing so.
Shame! 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 Shame!
What's even crazier to me is that this was an experiment like the marshmallow experiment that was actually recorded. So, take a listen. The Ash conformity experiments in 1951 involved a series of studies directed by American psychologist Solomon Ash that measured the effects of majority group belief and opinion on individuals. 50 male students from Swarthmore College participated in a vision test with a line judgment task. A naive participant was put in a room with 7 Confederates who had agreed in advance to match their responses. The participant was unaware of this and was told that the actors were also naive participants. There was one control condition with no Confederates. Confederates means actors. Purposefully gave the wrong answer on 12 of the trials. The other participant usually went with the group and said the wrong answer. Though 18 trials total, Ash's experiment in 1951 found that 1/3, 33% of naive participants conformed with the clearly incorrect majority, with 75% of participants over the 12 trials. Fewer than 1% of participants gave the wrong answer when there were no participants.
The experiment you'll be taking part in today involves the perception of lengths of lines.
And it is break time. I want you to pause the video right now and I want you to stretch for 60 seconds. Just 60 seconds. This will improve the blood circulation in your brain and allow you to keep retaining more of the information that's about to come next.
As you can see here, I have a number of cards, and on each card there are several lines. Your task is a very simple one. You're to look at the line on the left and determine which of the 3 lines on the right is equal to it in length. All right, we'll proceed in this order. You'll give your answer.
That's somebody's dad right there.
Is a real subject, the 5th person with the white t-shirt. The others are Confederates of the experimenter and have been told to give wrong answers on some of the trials. The experiment begins uneventfully as subjects give their judgments.
2. 2. 2. 2.
Man, technology has changed, man.
3. 3.
Look at the camera
Three.
footage.
3.
But on the 3rd trial, something happens.
2. 2. 2. 2. 2.
The subject denies the evidence of his own eyes and yields to group influence.
1.
Ash found subjects went along with the group on 37% of the critical trials. But he found through interviews that they went along with the group for different reasons.
1. 1.
They must be right. There are 4 of them and 1 of me.
1.
This subject's yielding is based on a distortion of his judgment. He genuinely believes that the group is correct.
Peer pressure,
1. 1.
mob mentality.
1.
2. 1. 2. 2. 2.
I know they're wrong, but why should I make waves?
2.
In this case, the subject knows he is right, but goes along to avoid the discomfort of disagreeing with the group. Here, the distortion is at the level of his response.
2. 2. 2. 2.
In the previous experiment, the naive subject stood alone against the group. In this variation, Ash gave the naive subject a partner, here seated in the third position, who also gives the correct response.
1.
1. 2. 1. 2.
With a partner, yielding drops to only 5% of the critical trials compared to 37% without a partner. Although subjects report warmth and good feeling toward the partner, they typically deny that he played a role in their own independence. The partnership variation shows that much of the power of the group came not merely from its numbers, but from the unanimity of its opposition. When that unanimity is punctured, the group's power is greatly reduced. Sometimes we go along with the group because what they say convinces us they are right. This is called informational conformity. But sometimes we conform because we are apprehensive that the group will disapprove if we are deviant. This is called normative conformity. The strength of the normative factor is shown in another variation carried out by Ash.
Now to ask a real personnel what he thinks about mob mentality. So what do you think, Aussie?
About mob mentality, I don't necessarily agree with it, but by technical definition I have been a part of mob mentality before.
And in what way could you say mob mentality has affected your life? Is it a positive or negative influence?
A bit of both. I've definitely followed with crowds that I wouldn't say that I'm proud of following behind, but I've also been part of good causes, fought for equality, Black Lives Matter movements, and stood in rallies and whatnot, which by technical definition is mob mentality.
What do you think about mob mentality? What is the first thing that comes into your head?
Al Capone, Alfonso Capone.
Why?
He was the first intelligent man, wise man, that he tried to be his own mind against the government back in the day.
Al Capone.
Alfonso Capone. Yes, Al Capone.
What do you think about mob mentality?
Like a Minecraft mob, like from Minecraft, like a zombie and then mentality. For example, like a creeper mob.
Ah, those are very dangerous.
Yeah.
What do you think of mob mentality? What do you think of mob mentality?
I wanna eat a rabbit right there.
Have you ever experienced any mob mentality? Maybe when you were a kid?
Every night.
What do you think of mob mentality?
Cowards running in packs. A lot of people don't have the courage to face problems, so they wait till they get a large crowd so they can hide behind the hand and throw a bottle, say a word here and there. The audience can blame the crowd instead of people, or we call it echo chambers.
Everything that they used to do, they used to go to jail, and now it's free. And they can get free rides now. So I believe that the government is pretty hypocritical when it comes to those things. So everything that Alfonso Capone was doing back in the day, now they get away with things.
Mob mentality is basically peer pressure. How have you found that to affect you in your everyday life?
So the whole peer pressure thing, like the pressure to conform to neurotypical norms, like with ways of behaving, and trying to put on the mask and everything, can be pretty stressful. Like when I was a courtesy clerk, I really had to try to keep on the mask for as long as I can. When I'm done working, finally get home, I can take off the mask and trying to stay sane, and it can be a lot,
Up on the hill snowboarding, your friends, they all want you to go big and just jump that jump or do whatever, faster, bigger, better.
Yeah, peer pressure.
That's about all I could think of right now, other than drugs.
The problem I have with mob mentality is free thinkers like you and me are considered outcasts. You know, anybody who is outside of the fold, outside of the social media, outside of the news outlets who paint the world a certain way, you know, when you think freely and you have your own opinions and you live life how you want to live life, you're considered different or an outcast. And you know, that's the problem with mob mentality. Everybody wants to be the same. Everybody wants to do the same thing. So difference to people like that becomes, you become different. You become different than them, you know? So these are the issues that I have with mob mentality.
What do you picture in your mind?
A nice business. I picture a trailer here that's got beautiful colors. I talked to a gentleman that has been very kind to me, picked me up with a drink, picked me 2 sandwiches when he was closing out. I appreciate that, and I hope that does okay.
Make a coffee commercial. Oh, if only there was a cure for tiredness. Well, guess today is your lucky day. Go to sleep early. Huh, screw that. Get caffeine! That's right, person. It's time to get properly caffeinated. And what better place to do it than the Pink Food Truck? The Coffee Lab PDX serves the warrior on the menu, designed to conquer your mediocrity but not solve it entirely. This delicate blend of Mexican spices, steamed milk, and espresso will surely help you cope your boring, bullshit 9-to-5 desk job, but it will not solve your problems completely. Getting less than 8 hours of sleep is never healthy, so I highly suggest that you sleep better and then drink this to help you conquer the day. Let's face it, everybody nowadays has access to some piece of technology, whether it's in their house, in their studio. Why would you even have a studio? The fact is, everyone has a cell phone nowadays. So, the same way I was able to make a commercial and influence people because of it, make so that the people crave what I'm trying to sell to them, and makes it so that I become a millionaire in the process. And that is the art of controlling groups of people. You see, nothing beats, a freshly roasted coffee. With that little coffee bean right there, you can manipulate millions, because all it takes is the proper level of charisma, the proper level of social skills to be able to really gather a mob in your favor. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because if you can master the art of public speaking, for example, I am completely far from mastering it, but if you can control it better into your favor, you can make it so that people are on your side all the time. I mean, just look, for example, Kim Jong-un. He is infamously known for controlling the entirety of North Korea. Now, why did he do that? Well, it wasn't him, the person before him. And what those people had in common was that they were able to persuade people. They were able to use psychology in their favor and gather these large groups of people to think all the same unison way. And it's not easy, let me tell you, trying to control a bunch of people at the same time. Look, for example, at TED Talks. When you see a person from TED Talks, or maybe even a podcaster that you like, what do they have in common? They have open body language. They have such a irresistible magnetic pull to them. It just makes you want to listen. And if you, the person, are trying to get people to be on your side, imagine the things you can do with it. Well, let's not get a little controversial here, but just look at what Mr. Beast is doing. Mr. Beast has gathered the minds of people, has influenced them, and he has made all these expensive videos possible because of mob mentality. So how is the question? How can you turn people to your side? Well, since the dawn of time, we as people have always wanted to master the art of ruling. And whether you're a physical shape or not, it can all depend entirely on your social status as well. If you are a person that has absolutely zero social skills, you're incompetent, and you lack zero charisma, you're more likely to be part of a mob. And there's a famous historic example, the Italian Mafia.
Don Duck, Donkey Kong, Don Amnesia, forget about it. Don Onomatopoeia, bang.
So, the Italian Mafia started quite a long time ago. And what these people wanted to do was to control sections of New York to benefit themselves and to protect the people they cared about. Of course, now the mob is all over the place. Organized crime can also be attributed thanks to mob mentality. So to close off this video, there really is one thing to keep in common. Just as easy as it is for me to learn how to unicycle and influence people just the same way a clown can, there is a pretty big difference in your everyday life. So what we're trying to say here is that no matter where you are, no matter where you live, there's always some sort of mental mob mentality that'll exist, whether you like it or not. Because the world we live in is a world that is designed to revolve around the opinions of others. So remember, it does not matter how many people think a certain way, as long as you are unique and you can, of course, express it in a way that suits you best, you will never be one of the crowd. And we've always heard that if you think the certain way a crowd does, you'll never be original. But remember, sometimes it's better to conform with the crowd. I mean, which crowd are you on at the end of the day? Are you in the good crowd or are you in the bad crowd? Take fitness, for example. Fitness is a crowd of people that are all trying to get better together through means of exercise. But if they can't get better and all they want to do is cope around and try to appear as if they're doing well, like many communities do, then they create a mediocre mob mentality. You have the power to influence. You've always had it. And as long as you always keep a healthy mindset, a strong attitude going, you will always have people on your side. It's very easy to fall into the wrong crowd in life. So how can we avoid this? Well, the answer might be disturbingly shocking. We can't. Some things people are just okay with. If it's joining a gang or being part of a money laundering scheme, people are going to choose who and where they belong at all times. I chose where I belong, right there, that pink metal bucket. And there's this book that was made by Esther Hicks called The Vortex. To summarize The Vortex talks that you are what you attract. And so if you, the person watching this, are unsatisfied with something, whether it's a group, whether it's an environment, that mentality of being part of that something can always be changed. But the question is, are you willing to do it?